Hei, vi prøver noe nytt. Vi har det siste, jeg vet ikke, 2 årene, så har vi begynt å fase inn litt intervjuer i podcasten. Kanskje ikke alle som har fått det med seg, kanskje ikke. Vi legger intervjuene for å separere det fra podcasten, så legger vi dem på Patreon, som er vår betalingsmur, kan du. Men det som er dumt med det er at vi vil gjerne spre, det er delvis en måte vi finansierer podcasten på, sånn teknisk finansiering på en måte, og så er det delvis en måte å separere de 2 strømmene. Men så tenkte vi at det her må vi sende ut til alle, og finne en måte å gjøre det på, fordi at vi har mange intervjuer som vi føler selv er interessant, og de varer evig. Så vi har bestemt oss for at hver gang vi legger ut et nytt intervju på Patreon, så legger vi en av de gamle intervjuene vi har i vår podcast-strøm, og litt sånn å gjøre ting litt på trass. Nå er det sommer, vi ser at de fleste podcaster er sommerferie, så da prøver vi å gjøre mer, bare på fanskap. Så nå gjør vi mer. Og i dag skal vi publisere et intervju vi gjorde for litt over 1 år siden, men det er akkurat like relevant i dag. Og det er et intervju med Abbas Gallyamov, som var taleskriveren til Putin på et tidspunkt, og har en del personlig erfaring med Putin. Når vi la det ut 27. mai 2022, så krigen annerledes ut, men det var ganske lik sånn som det er i dag. Det hadde jo gått i neste fase, og Ukraina slo tilbake hardt. Så vi føler at det snakkes om her er relevant, og det var et artig intervju å gjennomføre, og vi tror at det er verdt å høre det for alle. Så når vi legger ut det intervjuet på vår vanlige podcast-feed, der du får vanlige podcasten, så legger vi også ut et intervju med Espen Agdestein, tidligere manager til Magnus Carlsen, men en person som er veldig mye mer enn det, og han har en fantastisk interessant forretningshistorie, og med mange sidespring. Så hvis du vil høre den og alle de andre intervjuene, så må du bli med på Patreon, men etter hvert kommer vi det også til å havne her, og med en god stund. Så da tror jeg vi bare starter denne sendingen, som er da en fullstendig publisering av den gamle, inkludert med introen vi hadde da, så introen til Peter. Så da tror jeg vi bare starter med det, og så lenge vi har gamle intervjuer, kommer det her til å fortsette, men de kommer sånn cirka 1 år etter vi la dem ut, eller mindre. Det er ikke noe fast vane. Her er Abbas Gallyamov. Ja, da er det en Patreon-episode. Om den her kommer ut fredagskveld eller lørdagsmorgen, det vet jeg ikke enda, men sannsynligvis en av de 2. Og det er en litt spesiell gjest vi har. Det er den tidligere taleskriveren til Vladimir Putin, som var med i det teamet til Abbas Gallyamov, og Gallyamov er vel uttalen. Og det var en veldig sjelden mulighet for meg å kunne stille spørsmål om de her menneskelige tingene bak overskriften. Så målet var å kunne, han har jo suttet tett på makta og vet hvordan ting fungerer, og har suttet tett på Putin, selv om han ikke har vært i intim kontakt med Putin. Altså 1-til-1 så har han møtt han noen 100 ganger, sa han vel. Og fikk muligheten til å stille noen kompliserte spørsmål og få lange, grundige svar. Nå har du hørt gjennom det, Peter, det intervjuet som ble gjort for noen timer siden. Hva synes du?
Veldig bra. Og det er jo spennende, fordi her er det en person som du nevner, som har vært tett på, og både kjente kretsen rundt ham på det tidspunktet han var i Kreml, men fortsatt kjenner godt til persongalleriet rundt, og hvordan det opererer. Så jeg synes det var kjempespennende. Begynnelsen bekrefter jo veldig mye av det vi, og da tenker jeg de fleste sånn europeere, tror jeg da, tenker, men du får mer bakgrunn for de synspunktene, og det er nyttig i seg selv, mens andre delen, må jeg si, er overraskende / avslørende for hva som foregår. Og hvis det var tre ting som særlig som jeg la merke til i det han sa, og det ene var ut fra Putins ståsted. Han vil heller bli betraktet som en djevel enn en klovn. Jeg synes det var utrolig godt sagt. Så han ønsker å være the hard man, med andre ord. Han vil ikke bli sett på som en klovn og en taper. Og det er vel for så vidt sånn som jeg oppfatter ham, men bare uttrykt nesten poetisk i intervjuet. Den andre var at Putin da har egentlig, og han tar ikke denne sammenligningen, det det jeg som gjør, men har en gurka-filosofi. Og gurka-filosofien jo, eller ikke filosofien, men en gurka, det jo en nepalesisk leiesoldat faktisk, som i de britiske styrker. Så britiske styrker har gurka-regimenter, og det nepalesiske leiesoldater, og dette går jo tilbake i tid, det derfor man har disse. Men de utrolig bra soldater. Jeg hadde også enkelte gurka-soldater i den enheten jeg tilhørte, men gurkaen blant annet kjent for å ha en kniv som kalles cookery. Og når den kniven forlater sliren, så må den trekke blod. Så hvis en gurkasoldat drar den ut av sliren for å puste den, så må den kniven trekke blod før den kan gå tilbake igjen. Og derfor så ser du gurkasoldater ha mellom pekefinger og tommelen, ha masse små hvite arr der, fordi de drar den over der for at den skal trekke blod. Og det jo litt det som, og den parallellen brukes da i intervjuet, hvor han sier at kniven kommet ut av sliren. Altså, Putin har valgt å bruke makt, og med det, og dermed så det ikke slik at han bruker makt, og så det over umiddelbart. Altså, det ikke sånn at man da kan gi seg, eller plutselig komme til en forhandling. Det lå i kortene at det måtte trekke, altså i det øyeblikket makten var der, at det måtte trekke blod. Og jeg husker forut for invasjonen av Ukraina, så kjørte man jo alle disse styrkene opp til grensen, og så plutselig så kom det da beskjed fra russerne, eller fra Putin, at de trekker styrkene tilbake igjen. Og jeg husker vi diskuterte, og jeg sa, jeg har ikke noe tro på dette. Jeg har ingen tro på at han trekker seg uten videre. Og taleskriveren refererer til her, jo akkurat det. Det jo at makten, altså kniven kommet ut, og han vil da bruke den. Så jeg synes det var veldig interessant. Og så var det den siste taken, som overrasker meg, at kan være på et sånt detaljnivå, men det mulig at det men også at han vet om dette, men han har kilder, og han nevner jo Abramovich, mener jeg, også kommer opp i denne i det han snakker om. For øvrig, han ble rik på råvarer, vi skal sikkert snakke om det en gang også, men ikke i denne podcasten. Men det nevnes spesifikt massakren av sivile i Butsja. Og det inntrykket man sitter igjen med, at Putin var fullt innforstått med den, og nærmest ga klarsignal. Og det jo helt vanvittig skremmende, synes jeg. Altså, at soldatene, krigsherrede soldater, begår krigsforbrytelser, det på en måte en ting. Det like forbannet forbrytelser, bare så det sagt. Men at topplederskapet kjent med det, og nærmest godkjenner det, det jo en helt annen. Altså da må du tilbake igjen til krigen i Bosnia, hvor hva het han? Ratko Mladic ga rett og slett ordre, altså hvor hvor FN, eller NATO var det vel som var inne der, NATO snappet opp radiokommunikasjon mellom soldater, altså en avdeling, og Mladic, som da var den serbiske hærføreren, hvor han gir ordre om massaker. Så det setter jo hele saken i eller denne krigen i et enda verre lys, synes jeg da.
Og så var det da slutten av intervjuet. Det kommer til å slutte ganske brått. Fordi at det siste spørsmålet tar vi ikke med. Og vi valgte å fjerne i sin helhet. Og ja, det det. Vi trenger ikke å gå så mye mer inn på...
Ja, altså jeg kan jo si litt av bakgrunnen, og det var at det kom noe informasjon som var såpass overraskende og ukjent for, i hvert fall oss, eller det jo ikke fremme, at vi føler jo at det må i så fall verifiseres, altså det ikke noe for, som vi skal, håper å si, avsløre.
Nei, og så må jeg huske at en god del av det han sier jo hans egen analyse også.
Ja, det riktig.
Så det jo viktig å presisere det, og vi har tenkt mye og lenge på om vi skulle gjøre det her, om vi skulle legge det ut, og fant ut at det virket greit. Men det var ikke en lett avgjørelse, det her intervjuet, sånn i sin helhet.
Jeg må jo også si det der at det mulig at man oppfatter intervjuet for spesielt interesserte, men dette handler om noe mye større, mener jeg, og det at det handler om geopolitikk, og det vi ser jo at geopolitikk griper så kraftig inn i verdensøkonomien for tiden, at for å kunne forstå og ha noen som helst forutsigbarhet i verdensøkonomien, så geopolitikken viktig å forsøke å forstå. Så jeg synes det høyst relevant.
Så var et ønske om å få lange, uavbrutte svar på kompliserte spørsmål fra noen som forstår kulturen og forstår maktdynamikken og alt det, uten at man trenger å begi seg ut på sladder og spekulasjon og sånn. Men skal vi starte? Vi går rett inn i samtalen. Det var litt problemer med connection på de første par spørsmålene, så vi klipper litt inn i samtalen. Og så snakket han om sin bakgrunn, som veldig omfattende og veldig betydelig. Og så håper jeg så pris på at vi jobber sent på både torsdag og fredag, på helligdag og sent på fredager for å få det her til.
Jeg må jo si at jeg synes det var litt av et kupp at du fikk ham. At du fikk intervjuet med han, det må jeg si.
Men da går vi i gang.
Well, I worked as a member of Putin's speech writers team for 3 years. 1 year I worked when he just became the president in 2001, 2002. Then I quit, and then I came back on a higher level when he became prime minister, and I worked with him for 2 more years. It was 2008, 2010. Then in 2010 I left I became vice governor of one of the biggest Russian regions, Bashkiria. Then I quit this in 2014, and after this I became independent political consultant, making elections, campaigns. And as this, I became quite well known in Russia publicly, and I was communicating with many Russian politicians, including I was before 2018, when my relations with Kremlin got spoiled completely. Before that, for several years, we were communicating like it was. Our relations were not even. They were, on the one hand, I was like too independent for them, and they didn't like this. On the other hand, they were trying to still to communicate with people like me, trying to make their game. So it was a kind of a give and take for several years. And as a member of this, I was meeting Kirienko, Volodin, who were at that time chief political managers of Putin. And after 2018, they declared me to be their enemy. So I had no contracts with the authorities, but I was still working with the opposition, with some opposition politicians, including communists, for example. I was consulting them during the last Duma elections in 2021. And after this war started, I quit all the contacts. Actually, not me. All my contracts with Russian, even politicians, the so-called systemic opposition, they got broken, and with the regional authorities got broken because I'm too oppositional, too negative in their view, and they're already afraid to deal with me. So I live in Israel. Actually, I moved my family here in 2018. So they're here for 4 years already. For 2 years before Corona started, I was working there in Russia and visiting my family sometimes in Israel. So I was flying here and there all the time. And now I'm in Israel. I'm not returning to Russia. After the war started, it became obvious that I can't afford doing this. So now Kremlin considers me to be a real enemy. So it's like this.
Wow. I almost got a lump in my throat. It sounds like a dangerous situation.
Well, if I come to Russia, yes. That's why I can't afford coming to Russia. And here in Israel, no, I'm safe. It's okay.
Is that why you're in Israel specifically?
Well, my family is here. It's number one. And number two, yes, it's because I can't afford going to Russia anymore.
So you're an independent consultant now?
Yes, I am, but actually now I have no clients because of this situation. I'm telling, the mood, you should understand, the mood in Russian politics became, after the war started, it became very gloomy, very dark, very somber. I don't know which term to use, but for you to understand that all the people are really afraid there. So they just got in touch with me, sometimes over some secret phones. They were afraid to be overheard and telling, look, sorry man, you understand, we can't afford communicating with you anymore. You are too negative, too oppositional. We respect you, but sorry, bye. So it was like this. They are too much afraid of communicating with Kremlin. So for many years, it was where people thought they could afford be Kremlin loyal, but still independent enough as to hire those consultants they considered necessary by themselves. Sometimes, for example, this last year, this party, last year a new right liberal party was created. It was a kind of Kremlin project. I mean, Kremlin allowed them to exist, and but still they were trying to show that they're independent. So they included me into their board of consultants, and they made a contract with me, and I was consulting them, and they were and I asked them that Kremlin hates me. They told, okay, look, we it's not that we so much dependent on them. We're trying to stay a little bit independent. So yeah, we know that we can't criticize Putin personally. Okay, this is the rule of the game. But please don't don't go into our inner sphere of our inner management. Let us hire those people which we want, and we want him. We don't want those loyalists which you have. We are still going to get these oppositional votes, and So it was just last year during Duma elections. But actually, like for a year before Duma elections, it was 2 years ago - 1 year ago. But right when the campaign started, they stopped relations with me. Probably at that moment they became too close to Kremlin already, and their independence stopped. So it was like this for several years. It was still like communists. They hired me knowing that Kremlin hates me, and still like we had nice relations. I was consulting them, and but now communists, they are like too much afraid of irritating Kremlin too. So now this so to say space of freedom between it's getting narrower and narrower and narrower. So now it squeezed me out. I don't know for how time, for how long, God knows.
So you have spent personally a lot of time with Putin, is that correct?
Look, I was never so high enough to communicate with him personally. No, I wouldn't be lying. I saw him dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times during different meetings, sometimes public, sometimes not public. So I saw him close and I observed him working for many hours, but saw him how he was communicating. But it was not like that he was addressing me personally. I had enough clearance to be present during those meetings, which was necessary for my work. But it was not personal communication. I saw how he was communicating, so to say, with members of the government and some oligarchs, but not communicating by myself with him.
What is he like as a person?
Look, my greatest feeling was that he was absolutely rational. I never saw him losing temper. No matter how like unpleasant the then complicated the issues he was discussing were, and he was extremely like he looked like a really good manager who can delegate authority to his managers and divide like spheres of control between them, and then listen to what they're telling and make decisions. And he was going into deep details. He could spend really like he could spend the whole hour discussing how the relations between the budget of the region and the federal budget should be like made in view of all this legislation and the activity of the prosecutors, general prosecutor's office, so that everything is like some laws, like some decisions made by the prosecutor's office and by parliaments, they like contradict each other, and this is the kind of contradiction hampering hampering government like to finance some like increase in pensions for the regional pensioners, for example, something like this. So it was like legal issue. It was the issue which was just for lawyers. Yes, and he was really going into deep details, and he could discuss it with his ministers and governors for 1 or 2 hours easily. And so like I would say it's really strange. He like in person he never looked what he is in public now. In public he is almost Hitler. In person he was just a good manager. But I should admit, first of all, last time I saw him personally, it was something like, okay, when I stopped working for him in 2010, but after this, when I was working in the region, I think once or twice. No, it was Medvedev, it was not him. So I never saw him after 2010 in person. So maybe he changed, it's number one. And number two is that when I saw him being so logical, he was always discussing issues which were not of like huge political importance. They were important from the point of view of like administration of the system, like how you administrate the system. Not everything the government does is political, right? So when it was not political, when it was like something where, okay, I can make this decision or I can make that decision, and publicly, it doesn't mean for me anything. Politically, there is no meaning in it. It's important from the point of view of efficient structure, functioning of the government. So in these issues, he was really open-minded and ready to listen to arguments and then make this logical decision. It was not something which was, so in this case, he was really able to delegate authority to somebody and then take his decision as an expert and make it his own decision. It was not issues which are politically important, number one, and number two, where he already made his decision.
Yeah.
Of course, where if it's an issue like Ukraine, and he knows that Ukraine is enemy, no, in this case, nobody has the right to argue with him on this issue. And everybody knows that if he made a decision already, he shows it. Then in this case, he can't be argued with. In this case, you have only to agree, and just go and do whatever your duty is with regard to this issue.
If we look back on Russian history, there are some things that are repeating over the centuries. And I'm thinking back to in 1986 when the Chernobyl disaster. And some things were highlighted in that, the handling of that, where it seemed that the upper management, Gorbachev, didn't get correct information because it was penalized down the system to be negative or give bad information. So it amplified up the system. Do you think that is still going on? Is he getting correct information? Is he getting good intelligence from his services?
That's what I'm telling. With regard to those issues which he has not yet decided upon, then he's getting absolutely adequate information from them. People know that they should tell him the truth, and in this case, they cannot afford lying to him. But if they know that this is the other type of decision, totally different story with regard to those decisions which he already made. Everybody knows his position on Ukraine. So in this case, you can't come and tell him, look, you are wrong. Ukraine is not like this. It's like that.
What happens if you do that?
Well, at best, you will lose your job. It's at best. He will be really angry with you. You can't, it's unimaginable. There are now no people around him who are able to argue with him. You should understand. No. They are absolutely, I saw them, they were speaking absolutely freely with him. He was not authoritarian at all. But it was his goodwill. It's not that institutionally he was limited. No, he could easily chop their heads off, literally. Nothing could hamper him. But he was good-natured, He kind of liked them. They are all his handpicked ministers, and they're loyal to him. They're doing whatever he tells. So they're a member of his team. So he was okay towards them. But of course, this doesn't mean that they can argue with him. No. So with regard to Ukraine, the information he was getting, it was already not objective. They were trying to build up to him with their bits and pieces of information, just to add to his already existing picture of the world, so to say. So you couldn't come to him and tell, look, I think you are wrong, and Ukrainians are going to offer a strong resistance. Now, in this case, he always has checks and balances. Politically speaking, this is the thing about which I know. like if I'm Kiriyenko, for example, and I'm responsible for this politically, like, and I'm coming and telling, look, I think Ukrainians will offer strong resistance. Now, public opinion in Ukraine now, it's totally different from what was in 2014 when you took Crimea and there was no resistance. The country changed. If you come and tell this, and you are Kiriyenko, you know that the next thing, what is going to happen next? He will listen to you. He would like what you told. He will call Volodin, Gromov, Peskov. There are other people who are like acting. He will call Surkov after all, and they are people who will whom he also trusts from the point of view of politics, and he will ask, look, man, this Kiriyenko is telling this thing. What do you think about this? And definitely they would do whatever, they will tell what he wants to hear. No, Kiriyenko is wrong. Like Ukraine it's not a different nation, it's the same. And they'll give 1,000 arguments why. Because, you know, the reality is so difficult, so complicated. You can always find something which is proving this point, or you can offer some other pieces which are proving this point. So if you are trying to prove this point, like there will be at least 3 or 4 people who will prove this point. And Putin will decide like, hey, he's just not professional. Or maybe he's a spy. And Kiriyenko is done with. You understand? So when I'm Kiriyenko and I'm telling, look, Ukraine is weak and they're not going to offer strong resistance, I know that maybe it's not like this. And maybe if he attacks Ukraine, he's going to find it out. And then maybe I will have a problem because I lied to him. But this may be several times. If they offer resistance, if he attacks, maybe he wouldn't attack. Maybe they wouldn't offer resistance. Never know. Nobody is like 100% sure in these things, right? So many ifs. But on the opposite side, if I now tell something which he doesn't like, and what, I will lose my job, and maybe I'll lose my freedom, and then he will not attack Ukraine. Why? Why should I do it? You understand? So this is always one step further, this threat of being punished for telling the truth, for not telling the truth. And the chance of being punished for telling the truth, which is unpleasant for him, it's one step closer all the time. And so they're just putting this threat one step aside.
We heard, yeah, completely. And it sounds like it's still operating in a similar way to the USSR. We heard some stories regarding the first troops going into to Ukraine, and it's impossible to verify information. There's so much information that's wrong in both sides. It's always like this when there is a war. We heard some stories that Russian troops had parade uniforms in their tanks because they were expecting to have a parade in Kiev.
Sure.
Is that do you think that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. Like he would never have, because I know that he is trapped, just an expert in public politics of Russia. I understand that now he is really in an impasse, in dead end. He is trapped. So he would never have gone into a trap if he knew that there would be this trap. So he didn't expect them to offer such strong resistance. He really underestimated Zelensky, and he really underestimated, actually they all, Kiriyenko and FSB and Foreign Intelligence, Naryshkin, they all underestimated Zelensky and underestimated the general public mood. They really were measuring Zelensky like themselves. All of them, they are not samurais, not this type of ideologues, ideological men who are going to die to prove their point, like for whom the truth is more important than their own well-being. No, this is just like they are really just corrupted politicians, like literally. They're like there just to earn as much money as you can, then planning to leave this office somehow, like separate yourself from this authority, from the government, and then go live somewhere in Switzerland or in France, in Nice. They're really about this. And even Putin, like originally, he was like this. So they are all about converting public money, government money into private money, you know? And they were really measuring Zelensky to be the same. And any of them, Putin including, if they had been there on his position, they would have done this, exactly this, just left the country and flew away.
Was that the key? Was that the key moment when Zelensky didn't leave?
And when he didn't leave, when he told this famous phrase, "I don't need, remember?
I don't need a ride. I need ammunition."
Yeah, right. They didn't understand that he was an actor, and which actor would agree to lose the role which any actor can only dream about?
Wow, that's a great analysis. That's a great analysis.
An actor can only dream about this. This is once in your life that you get this chance. And like 99.9% of actors in the world, they never get this chance.
And that's the best analysis I've heard of Zelensky so far. Wow, you really probably nailed it. Because actors are crazy.
Yeah, they gave him audience. He should be grateful to them. He was just like an actor who became a provincial actor, like in a provincial country, who just accidentally, by chance, it was a protest voting. It was not voting for Zelensky. It was voting against the system. So he became president just by chance. His anti-rating was higher than his rating just before the war started. He was really risking losing the next elections and becoming in history like one-term president. And then all of a sudden he gets a chance to become like the hero of the world. And of course he would never lose this opportunity. And they thought that he would lose this opportunity and go for money and personal safety just because they are like this. They would have done it.
What's so interesting is that method acting to live a role is literally a Russian invention. So they probably should have understood this. Method acting was invented in Russia. That's so interesting, the analysis. This has been talked about for months now, and nobody has come close to breaking it down like that. I'm very impressed.
Thank you very much.
No, that genuinely, like you caught me off guard completely with that.
No, actually, I wrote it in my Facebook, but it was in Russian.
Yeah.
So my Russian audience, yes, they appreciated it. I remember I liked I got something like 1,000 likes or something and about this. So that was their tragic mistake. So Putin really expected that it would happen something like it was in 2014. They would just cross the border. Ukrainians will surrender. Zelensky will flee to America, and before West manages to unite, they would start arguing between each other, holding parliamentary hearings. West is, in their belief, West is very slow and unable to brace up, unable to act quickly and resolutely. They will go into discussion and stay there for months without being able to make decisions. And before they manage to make any decision, we will be out of Ukraine already. The regime would be changed. There would be somebody else, somebody loyal, like Yanukovych, for example, or somebody else. And we would be out, and it would be like with Crimea. And too late to impose sanctions because it's done already. And that's what he was expecting to happen. And that was his strategic mistake. And now I'm sure he's absolutely angry. He's mad with all his intelligence and with all his military. He is absolutely sure that they let him down. And the only thing which still keeps them alive is that he is trying to show that everything is going according to his plan. And if he starts firing them or putting them to prison, that would mean that something is going wrong. And he can't afford showing that something is going wrong. He is his legitimacy. You should understand that his legitimacy is totally different from legitimacy of Western politicians. It's not about legitimacy of a person who was elected legally, for whom the voters voted, or the person who has some moral standing, like Obama, for example, with his message. His legitimacy is based 100% based on the perception that he is strong and he's going to win anyway, and he's going to be the president anyway, no matter what, and he's always defeating his enemies. So it's just useless to resist. If you resist, you will just lose. He will squash you. And this is the thing which his legitimacy is based on. And as soon as this idea of his weakness appears, his legitimacy is ruined completely. It's like with, this book of Jungle of Kipling, this Akela, which missed. And you remember this story, yes? As soon as he missed, that's all. His rule is over.
Is he not legitimate anymore? Do you think that?
He is losing ground, of course. So far, the process is just beginning. It's not going to happen overnight. Like, people see that the war continues. So what if he wins still? Maybe now, okay, he is weaker now because he didn't manage to make a blitzkrieg and win it within 3 days as they were promising. Because, for many years they were promising that the Russian army is so strong that they would, within the matter of 3 weeks, they would come to La Manche. They would cross the whole Europe. As for Ukraine, they were arguing if it's two days or 3 days that we need to conquer Ukraine completely, to take Kiev. And so, of course, the expectations were high, and now the moods are low because they didn't play up to expectations. It's like this feeling of defeated expectancy, of course. But still, there is the game is not over yet. Okay, maybe he will win, not so easily as we expected, but still he would manage to win. So people are watching, but they're already having doubts. It's both about the general public and about elites. And he feels this. He is mad. He is at a loss. Obviously, he is choosing between what to do, negotiate or continue military pressure. And he's doing both at the same time. And he gave, his authority as a mediator between different groups of elites became lower, weaker. That's why they're publicly arguing with each other more than before. They would some of the things which are happening now, like argument between Volodin and Turchak, which happened yesterday when they were just blaming each other publicly. You really couldn't imagine this happening just 3 months ago. Because everybody knows Putin hates his people arguing publicly. They can come to him to complain against each other, and he will be solving the problem, deciding who is which decision to make, whom to punish, whom to promote, whom to support. Yes, but this couldn't be done publicly. This is a story which happened something like a little more than 10. Let me recall when it happened. It was more like 15 years ago, probably. There was a big fight between Patrushev, who was at that time the director of FSB, and Cherkesov, one of his longtime allies and friends from FSB, who was at that time leader of, there was this Rosnarkokontrol, this anti-drugs special service. It was now it doesn't exist. Putin destroyed it, but he created it, and it was really powerful. And it was really. It had its own troops, special forces, and they were completely. They had a big conflict with FSB, and at some point, and Putin was trying to mediate between them, but they were still coming out and going public. Like Cherkesov was the guy to cross the border. He made a big article and one of the daily newspapers, Kommersant, published it, and Putin fired both of them. And after this, Cherkesov disappeared. He's totally lost. He lives somewhere in Italy, I think, in Tuscany, as I know, and he is absolutely private person. So he is Putin just kicked him out. And Patrushev, for many years, he was sitting as the chairman of this Security Council without any authorities. He was just out of the game. And only many years after, Putin forgave him and started again making him the center of power, center of authority. So institutionally speaking, Patrushev is still the same, but politically he is like this. What he was before Putin forgave him compared to what he is now. And everybody knows this story. And just happened to Cherkesov just because he went public. So they are.
Why are people frozen out? So you take someone like, I don't know, like Pugachev or someone like that, who were so powerful, and then they're just frozen out, and just overnight, people who are very wealthy, very powerful, very connected, and just from one day to the next, they're, like you're explaining, just living a private life. Just what specifically is causing this? Is it disagreeing with Putin?
Yeah, not disagreeing with Putin. No, not a single one of them was openly disagreeing with Putin, but who were not smart enough as to play the game the way he wants, not to go public. I told you not to do it. I told you to stop, and you continued it. Okay, you should be punished. You made me angry. And so with each of these persons, there was some story when they went. Some of them exceeded the authority which he permitted them, how he permitted them to act. We still remember this story. It was from 20 years ago. At that time, there was this first deputy minister of home, this police, Bobrovsky. He was also one of the Putin's people whom everybody knew that he was going to make him the minister and the minister of police, and this is very powerful position. But at first Putin put him just first deputy minister, and at this moment there was a big conflict over the Belarusian oil company between two Russian oligarchs, Abramovich on one side and this Pugachev plus Gutseriev on the other side. And this Bobrovsky, first deputy minister, he made a mistake by putting it onto the wrong horse. He got convinced by Pugachev that Putin approves of this thing, taking this Slavneft from Abramovich. And there was a public conflict, two opposing board of directors convening at the same time, one of them pro-Pugachev and the other pro-Abramovich. And Bobrovsky just sent police troops to block the building and not to allow the pro-Abramovich meeting board of directors to happen. And Abramovich somehow managed to communicate this to Putin. And really, Pugachev and Gutseriev and Bobrovsky, they just underestimated his ability to communicate to Putin directly. Maybe with the help of this daughter of Yeltsin or Yumashev. I don't know, it was not public. And Putin took the position of Abramovich, and he fired this Bobrovsky, and he got lost. He never became what he was expected to become. So in this case, he exceeded his plenary authorities. Putin put him as the first deputy minister, but he didn't allow him to intervene into the conflicts of oligarchs. So it was he became too, as we say in Russia, your head is getting dizzy because of success. Stalin was telling this, головокружение от успехов, dizzy with success. So that was the mistake Bobrovsky made. So something of this kind, it's Russian classic, не по чину берешь. You are taking more than your rank presupposes. This is what happened to Yakunin. In some cases, you are just going into unnecessary conflicts into which, like, I didn't send you there. Why did you make this? It was with Bespalov. At that time, he was close to Putin. He was his personal friend, and he became the chairman. Putin made him the chairman of Единая Russia, of his United Russia party. And he had a conflict with Surkov. Surkov, I understand why. Bespalov, he was considering, Surkov, he is the manager of Yeltsin, of all the Yeltsin team. They are getting weaker. Soon we, friends, St. Petersburg friends of Putin, we are going to take over the whole country from them. So he was, in their relations, he was pressing too much. He was like an aggressor. Surkov was defending. But at some point, this Bespalov, he just made this speech. Surkov came to Единая Russia, he delivered a speech, and it was not expected to be public. It was very cynical. And he made this audio and let it leak into the public to make scandal. He wanted to weaken Putin. He wanted to weaken Surkov. But Surkov took this leak, this tape, and he went to Putin asking, Vladimir Vladimirovich, this is making not me personally weak. This is making the party weak, the system weaker. This scandal which he made to weaken me, it's playing against you, against the whole system. And Putin fired Bespalov. So, this is
what's the source of Putin's power? I've heard, or I read an analysis once that said that natural gas was the real key to Putin's power inside Russia, where there was a natural gas subsidy, which was one of the sort of the ways to endear himself to people, at least early on. Is that correct, or is that a wrong assessment?
No, the original source is his control of Siloviki. Everybody knows that he can put to prison any person he wants. So this allowed him to get control over natural gas industry. When he was taking it over, some people went to prison, and he was, and just like this, he got control over the whole system, like of oil trade, and he put oil traders which were close to him, like Timchenko. Like he gave it him to all guys, and if you want to sell oil, like sell it through him. Like he divided the business community into like those people who are coming to some of his friends and making business with them. So
are you referring to the meeting now with the oligarchs when he in the beginning when he just took over? When he had the famous meeting, which was televised, when he sort of laid the new ground rules for oligarch. Is that what you're referring to now?
Not just this, no. Mostly I'm referring to this too, but mostly I'm referring to non-public meetings when he was telling, okay, those who are selling oil, they should be selling oil through the company which Timchenko leads. So go and communicate it with him. And Timchenko is telling, okay, man, I know your oil trade, and let us do it like this. You are selling 50 or 40 or 60%. You are selling the way you want, and the rest you are selling the way I'm asking you. This is the price. This is how we're going to do. So, but deep inside their agreement to whatever he was offering was their understanding that if we don't agree, he will put us to prison like he made with Khodorkovsky.
Yeah. And, was that the real key to complete power when he took him down?
Yes, it was very, very big step forward. People understood that he really means business. No, actually, Khodorkovsky was number 2. Number 1 was Gusinsky when he put Gusinsky to prison. When he changed the he kicked out of the country Berezovsky, when he changed the rule of creating he changed the rule of creating the Federation Council, the upper chamber of the Russian parliament. Before Putin, it was the governors by themselves were members of this upper chamber. And he changed the law, and instead of them being personally sitting there in the upper chamber, they started sending their representatives. And so they became the governors. They lost their tribune on the federal level, where they're all gathering together and they could speak publicly, and that was their source of influence, and they lost it. So there's several steps which happened within the first year of his being in power. It was exactly when I was working for him. People understood that he really means business. When he put Gusinsky to prison and took over his TV company. So step by step, he gained control over the country. So, and it was their understanding, I mean, elites, it was their understanding that he could put to prison any of them at any moment. And the parallel process was his high legitimacy, high ratings, like people were really voting for him, and he was winning elections, and something which Yeltsin couldn't afford doing. And it was like these two things, one public, one non-public, which made him what he was. Control over business and money, of course, big part of the process, but it was number two compared to these two things which were number one.
Do you think he believes his own, I don't want to call it propaganda, but do you think he believes his own story about what is happening now?
Well, definitely he believes his own propaganda about Ukraine being Nazi state, so to say. He
actually believes that?
Yeah, he created it and he believes it, I think. Like, you know, on the other hand, I'm telling you, I remember him being absolutely rational. And what I remember, how smart he was and how adequate he was, like, it's hard to imagine that he really believes this nonsense. But on the other hand, like, it's hard to imagine that you don't believe this nonsense and you are still doing it. On the other hand, you should understand that what he was doing with Ukraine until the last moment, actually, it was very cynical, but it was good for him from the point of view of his control over the Russian public policy. You should understand that at least since 2018, his legitimacy started getting weaker and his ratings were going down. And whenever foreign policy was off the agenda and domestic policy was on the agenda, at that moment his ratings were going down. Like, because from when you are looking at what is happening inside Russia and you are not at this moment just not considering NATO, Ukraine, USA, and all these foreign policy and military issues, you don't see any reasons why actually Putin is so, like, should be governing for decades, like that he's so, like, indispensable. Why? What do we have? The declining economics and this living standard, which is going down for something like 8 years already, and corruption and all this conservative values talking, which people are tired of, and total absence of the vision of the future, this vision thing. So, like, why can't we change it? People want change. The demand for change is really great in the country. And you see, but as soon as his ratings were going down, and as soon as foreign policy appeared on the agenda, it was changed. Okay, let us, like this rally around the flag effect. Let us put aside all our differences because the enemy is at the gate and the enemy is rattling saber, and we should get united and support our military, this commander-in-chief. And everybody who doesn't agree, who is criticizing him, those who are legitimate from the point of view of domestic policy, opposition is okay. Like Navalny is fighting corruption, good. But he is fighting corruption at this moment when NATO is expanding, that means he is a NATO spy. This is totally different perception. You understand? So for him to impose this foreign policy agenda, he needed to increase tensions. You should understand that Russian population in general, they started losing interest in all this Ukraine and Syria and America and NATO, all this thing. It started losing interest. The TV was still talking about them, and people just lost interest. They started concentrating on domestic agenda, on their lives. So this is what was happening between 2018 till February this year. And to keep the people, these people interested in this issue, he needed to increase tensions. It's like, with a drug addict. When the drug addict starts getting used to the drug, he needs to increase the dose, to take more and more of this drug to have the same amount of pleasure which he had before. Previously, to have this amount, say 100% pleasure, I needed 10 grams. Now to get the same 100% pleasure, I need like 20 grams. So he needed to escalate tensions. And what he was doing when he issued his ultimatum at the end of 2021, ultimatum towards NATO, and when he started this saber rattling, gathering troops on the border of Ukraine, his rating immediately went up. Between May last year and December last year, he lost something like 5 percentage points, plus minus, I don't remember for sure, but he was losing. It was downward trend. In January, as soon as he substituted this agenda, domestic agenda, with this Ukrainian NATO problem, within this January, his rating went up like 3 percentage points. And at the beginning of February, it was still getting up 1 or 2 percentage points plus. So this escalation of tensions from the point of view of his cynical interest, political interest, it was working. So if we put aside this moral issue of human lives and so on, and speak of politics cynically, actually he was doing exactly what he needed for his own self. Because in 2 years he was going to face serious elections.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Donald Trump when you describe him. I remember when Donald Trump talked about build the wall, the phrase when he kept saying build the wall. That came from somebody in the audience said that when he did the speech, and then he said it, and then they liked it, and he said, so I kept saying it. And it sounds like what you're explaining now, like he just completely cynically did what people responded to.
Yes, exactly. And that was actually here now I can tell as an expert in making elections, it was the only real sure way for him to ensure his future re-election victory. Because if he didn't manage to escalate now, if he had failed to escalate at the beginning of the year, he would have downward trend for 2 years. And in 2 years, he would have faced big chance that he would have faced a protest, not at the end of the elections like before. Well, you falsified the elections, we're objecting. No, he could have come across protest at the beginning. We don't want you to stand for elections. This is not legitimate. This was your previous term was the last one. And you changed the constitution, which was illegitimate. So we don't want you to stand. He was really facing the danger of making protest the background for the whole election campaign. And this is really bad thing. This is when really the revolution can happen. So he didn't want to risk this. And he needed to change this downward trend. And up to this February the 24th, he was making it right, cynically speaking. But he made a mistake in 2024. Escalating tensions up to the brink of the war was his interest. But
Yeah.
falling into a real war, which he cannot win, it was a tragic mistake which he made. So I was for so long answering this question of you, if he really believes his own propaganda. Like on the one hand, you can't imagine that somebody is doing this nonsense without believing it. On the other hand, like he just knows that he needs this myth to be spread, and maybe deep inside he still has this division, but nobody can be sure. You know, I still have the insiders, still a few brave people who are communicating with me, who are there in Kremlin. Like the majority of contacts now, they're afraid to communicate with me. But
what are they saying?
And they, you know, they are telling that they're going to these meetings, and they're telling that, you know, even in private discourse, many of them, like they're really, like Kirienko comes out from Putin and he makes the meeting, and he's really telling that Ukrainian Nazis, blah, 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 even in private with his own most close people like Novikov. And Novikov is coming and making the meeting with his people, and those people are calling me after this meeting. And they're telling, look, Novikov came from Kirienko and he was really telling this Nazi, blah, 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 blah. And like it seemed like he really believed this. And after the meeting, you are coming out there telling, and like 50% of these officials, they don't switch over onto the normal mode. They still continue. You are just communicating with him personally. You know him for many years, and he's still talking about there are Nazis, blah, blah, blah. And the other 50%, they are switching over to normal mode and telling, look, this is awful. This is nonsense. Of course, this is bullshit. This is not normal, but well, we can't stop it. So we have to do our job. We don't have any other option. The system is working like this. So this is a decision we cannot argue about. So let's do it. They, deep inside, they understand, and they even agreed to share it with you, their private opinion. But I'm telling you, but they still continue doing what they're doing. Yes, but this is only like half of the people, roughly speaking. The other half is not speaking this openly. Even in private discussion, as I'm telling you, they're still talking about this Nazi thing. So it's really hard to understand if Putin believes it. This is all I can tell him. So, unfortunately.
Do you think he's sick?
You mean this cancer rumors?
Well, he visually looks very different.
Yeah, well, obviously he looks bad, and I believe that actually I wrote it something like 1 month ago that I was thinking about the future, and like we are always discussing that one variant is like coup attempt, the other variant is like you know, public protest, like revolution, orange scenario. But actually I wrote that this pressure on him personally now is so heavy, it's crushing. Like he really made a great mistake. He nullified everything he was making for 20 years. And like this pressure is so strong, he can just break up physically. And maybe, like most probably, it's not going to be cool. It's not going to be this orange revolution. It will just be a stroke, and he will just break physically, just because the pressure is too strong. It's impossible to bear it. So, like,
do you think he has someone to talk to? I have friends who are CEOs, and they say that it's so hard because you can't talk to anyone. Nobody truly understands your situation. So you end up meeting other CEOs because they're other people. Do you think he can talk to Belarus, his equivalent to Belarus maybe, but do you think he has someone to talk to?
Well, maybe, you know, this...
Does he have a friend? Does he have friends?
Maybe Sechin, maybe Chemizov, most probably Rothenberg, maybe to a little smaller extent Timchenko and Tokarev. So they are very close to him, and So maybe with them he can be open, but still probably not 100%. He cannot admit that he is losing and he's afraid to lose. He can frankly discuss with them these problems, like, Shoigu is an idiot, and this Gerasimov, he's totally wrong, and FSB is not working efficiently, and let us decide how we can solve this problem. So he can be frank about parts of problems, but in general, guys, I'm trapped and I lost, and we don't know what to do. I'm not sure he can do it even with them. He's too much afraid that they would betray him, and so to keep them loyal, he needs to produce the impression of strength. He can't afford to look like Akela, which didn't miss. I think that's why Bucha happened. He really understood that he lost, and he was, on the one hand, just mad with Ukrainians, and he wanted revenge. You're like this? Okay, then get it. And on the other hand, he understood, he felt it, that I would better be look like a devil than like a clown. If definitely they're not going to respect me. So if they would either laugh at me or they would be shocked and scared how bloody I am. And it's better for them to be afraid of me than for them to laugh at me. And this is his worst fear, is that he would become laughed at. He understands that this is the end of his role. Oh. And I think he has this inner conversation with Rothenberg. I think this Rothenberg, he's a real gangster from the 90s, even from the 70s, from these old Soviet type gangsters, and these criminal authorities. So as we call this institution, Криминальный авторитет. And there, you just, as they say, you pulled out the knife, you can't put it back. You need to thrust it. If you pulled out a knife to scare somebody away and he didn't get scared, you can't just put it back. You need to thrust it. Otherwise, you're a loser. So this Rothenberg is the obvious person who bears this morality, so to say, in his inner circle. And Putin is, when he is making decisions, I think he has in front of his inner eye, he has somebody like Rothenberg, maybe Rothenberg personal, maybe somebody like this, maybe it's some collective image of this. But he is thinking, when he's making decisions, what would Rothenberg think if I make this? What he would tell if I make this? And if it's, he will decide that I'm a weakling, that if he is going to decide that I'm weakling, I am never going to take this step. I will do the opposite. So that's why it's better, for the world to be shocked how bloody I am, bloodthirsty I am. Let it be. Then for them to just to see that I am defenseless. If you look scary, you don't look like a laughing stock. Yeah, I think this is the thing which inside him, which made him do it. He legitimized this thing. He gave this official guards, Gvardia, the guards' name to the regiment which was stationed there in Bucha. And he sent this message: "Hey guys, I'm with you. Don't think that I will let you down." He preferred this kind of message. He didn't want to look like the person who, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the word, drognul, who buckled down, I think.
Is that a friend?
No. If you you're attacking and then for a suddenly you stop and you retreat, it's buckle down, I think.
Okay.
So he didn't want to look
I understand what you mean. So can I ask you a few questions? I'm sorry, we were going to talk but this conversation is blowing my mind. It's so interesting. I know Putin doesn't drink. I know Putin doesn't drink famously. I bet he wishes he does now, but I don't. I haven't had a drink for a long time, and I think I'm going to have a drink tonight to take this all in.
It's Friday. It's
exactly.
Legitimate.
Maybe I should buy some Kosken Korva or something. Some Russian vodka.
You're in Norway. I wish you would do aquavit. You have great Norwegian aquavit.
I don't know about great, but yeah.
I love it. I really love it. It's
it's great if you want heartburn. Then it's brilliant. It's for Christmas here.
Kosken Korva is great too.
Yeah. So I have a few more questions. I'm sorry I'm occupying my time. You can just tell me to fuck off if it's too much.
No.